Forensic Science Lecture 11-2, General Features of Bloodstain Formation. General features of bloodstain formation can tell us a lot. Whether the blood patterns are deposited on the floor, the walls, bedding, or any other relevant objects, it can provide valuable insight into the events that occurred during the violent crime and add to the reconstruction process. The crime scene investigator must remember that the location, disruption, and appearance of bloodstains and spatter may be useful for interpretation and reconstruction. And so they need to make sure that they preserve the crime scene and the blood spatter to the best of their ability. Some information that can be gained from bloodstain patterns is the direction of origin, the angle droplets struck the surface, the location or the position of the victim at the time of the impact, movement of the individual who was bleeding, whether it be the suspect or the victim, the minimum number of blows that the individual may have sustained, and then the approximate location of the suspect as they were delivering those blows. One thing that can vary the way that the droplets fall or their pattern is the surface texture that they fall onto. And so in order to interpret the bloodstain patterns, there's a necessity to have a carefully planned, controlled experiment using surface materials that are comparable to those found at the crime scene. And then an interpretation can be made. So some surface textures that cause variation: hard, non-porous surface tends to have less splatter, so it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be less violent or less blows. It just is the surface that it landed on may be different. So the top right picture is a smooth, non-porous surface. A rough surface usually results in irregular shaped stains and with serrated edges, so edges that kind of spike out. It also has the possibility that satellite splatter, which are small droplets that are disrupted around the perimeter of the original droplet, can form because of the irregular surface or rough surface, which is the bottom right picture. Another piece of information that can be taken from bloodstain patterns is the direction the blood traveled, and this is obtained by studying the shape of the stain. So distorted or disruptive edges of an elongated stain indicate the direction of the travel. And so the satellite stains will have points facing opposite directions, but it gives an idea as to the origin of where that individual was when they were struck and as the blood was flying to create that spatter. Another piece of information that they use is the angle of impact. And the angle of impact is formed between the path of blood and the surface that it contacts. But it can be determined by measuring the degree of the circular distortion of the stain. So at a right angle, which is 90 degrees, blood droplets are circular. As the angle decreases, the stain becomes elongated. They use the following calculations to determine the angle, which is the inverse sine of the angle is equal to the width of the blood stain divided by the length of the blood stain. This ends lecture 11-2. There is a quiz next class.